International Covenants of Civil and Political Rights, which provides that in those states in which ethnic, religious, or linguistic minorities exist, persons belonging to such minorities shall not be denied the right in community with other members of their group. Meaning, in simple terms, you have to live together, and then you got to try to establish relationships, so on and so forth. So in so many words about minority rights. And if we were to look at the framework, this imposes on states a duty of non-interference with rights of such person, but not a duty to assist. Okay, then we go down where this morning we talk about 1992, a Declaration on the Rights of Persons belonging to national or ethnic, religious, and linguistic minorities. Now that point has been expanded upon by the expert, Ms. Rita. I will not go into that, but this will be the framework, the beginning of the whole picture. And of course, within the local context, Article 1 before that provides that, Article 1 of the 1992 provides that states shall protect. So there is a further added provision or clarification. This time protection comes in. You have to protect the existence and the national, ethnic, cultural, religious, and linguistic identity of minorities within the respective territories, and shall encourage conditions for the promotion of that identity, which we talked about this morning. So the elements are all there, and within the national context, the Malaysian context, rights is guaranteed under the Federal Constitution. Sometimes they overlap with international standards. Now, this, in terms of legal jargon and phrases, would make up a case for us to knock at the door. And I'm asked to speak about rights of minorities in Malaysia. And sometimes I think it's a huge topic. I'm not able to do it within the span of 15 minutes, but I'm able to ask myself certain pertinent questions. What are the contemporaneous issues? What are the issues now currently bothering us, and upon which we focus our attention? Now, while this subject can be huge and controversial, two issues that have stood out in recent past, like a sore thumb to engage our attention, seems to be indigenous people's rights and those of a minority group identified by their sexual orientation and gender. Now, this morning when I talked to Ms. Rita, the expert on minority, I did ask her the question, you know, there is no agreed definition on the word minority. How do we go about it? And I did test myself against what she has told us this morning, and said, would I be wrong if I said I base it demographically, where in terms of numbers, you're a small group, and then you are being oppressed, and you move in a certain direction of identity where you talk about your group in terms of what you are and who you are. And I'm glad she says it's okay to do that. Not so much on the terminology, but go to the substance. Look at the problematic area. Okay, if I'm wrong, please correct me, Ms. Rita. Okay, and the two contemporaneous issues that I'm going to turn to would be indigenous people's problems and LGBT's community. The problem of encroachment by authorities and loss of customary land. This is a huge problem. In Semenanjung or Peninsular Malaysia, for example, I will just take one example to show you and elaborate the severity of the problem. The Orang Asli Seletar, Orang Asli belongs to many other different tribes. Okay, let's take down south. The Orang Asli Seletar in the coastal areas of Johor, for example, face sustained and continuous encroachment by state authorities as to their customary land. They are a traditional fishing community and the decimation of mangrove swamps and pollution of rivers and coastal waters have threatened their livelihood and at risk of being put to extinction. There are 9 Orang Asli Seletar villages along the coastal belt of Johor, of which 7 are located in the Iskandar development region. Only 2 villages have been partly gazetted as Aboriginal reserves under the Aboriginal Peoples Act 1954. The rest of more than 2,000 Orang Asli Seletar live as squatters or illegal occupants on lands alienated to private entities without their free, prior, and informed consent. Their customary rights over their own land were just ignored. Matters came to a head recently when there were attempts to desecrate their ancestors' graves, and with that an action against the state and federal government was filed at the Johor Bahru High Court. Rights to customary land, and it is an established fact these days, are recognized by the highest courts in this country. They are supported in cases such as Adong Kawa and Sagong Tasi. Now, on top of this, violations in terms of customary land rights, you have further protection from the Federal Constitution, and there are Article 5, which guarantees you the right to life. If you destroy a livelihood, you are violating a basic human rights, the right to life. Article 5 of the Federal Constitution so coincides with the Covenants and Declaration. And Article 8, equality. If you are going to take away my land, then it's not going to be a fair thing to do. Okay, that's what Article 8 says. You're going to treat people equally. And Article 13 of the Federal Constitution guarantees right to property. So you see an overlapping of international covenants, rights, and all that. And also with the provisions under the Federal Constitutions. Now what I'm trying to say is the Orang Asli Seletar is just one example of the reckless manner in which Orang Asli customary lands and traditional livelihood are dealt with by the government. Elsewhere, if you talk about another tribe, the Orang Asli Termia face similar violations of minority rights. Alleged intrusion and logging still persists. Police reportedly burned down a blockade and arrested 13 Orang Asli Termia in 2012. So it's a kind of land grabbing that is not allowed under the law, violation of human rights, both under the international covenants and the Federal Constitution. Okay, and the burning down of the blockades was a serious matter because it's an encroachment upon customary land. I am glad to say that a lawyer amongst us tried to help this 13 Orang Asli Termia, and she's no other than our Siti Kasim, the chairperson. So she was an actor. She was not an onlooker just standing by, and for helping the 13 Orang Asli Termia, she got arrested that day by the police. But she was released later, of course. Now, what about situation across the South China Sea? Situation in Sabah and Sarawak, no better. Ancestral land appropriated by state authorities, handed over to logging and palm oil companies were some of the complaints. Between 2002 and 2011, Suhakam, that is the national human rights body for those who are new in this country, Suhakam received 1,098 complaints that relates to native customary land rights. Of these, 229 cases from Sarawak and 824 from Sabah. That's a whopping figure. This excludes the numerous court cases, not to mention stories of lies and deceit as related by members of Orang Asli and Orang Asal community. In East Malaysia, you call them Orang Asal. Now, development of native customary land must conform to the principle of free, prior, and informed consent. You can't just go into people's land and take them away without consultation. That's the basic point. And this basic point is laid down in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People 2007. The acronym is UNDRIP. Now, this declaration is one that the Malaysian government has voted in favor. So we see a hypocrisy on the part of the Malaysian government in not honoring what they have voted. And it is hoped that the government will use the recommendations of the National Human Rights Body recently released national report on the land rights of indigenous people as a blueprint. Now, Suhakam have done a comprehensive report, and the expectations of people is it will be presented to Parliament, debated upon, and action and policies could be structured to give expression to the wishes of the Orang Asli people. Now, this exercise, as I know, involved about 6,000 over Orang Asli. It is hoped that it will be a blueprint to review their indigenous land policies and practices as a way forward. As I talk today, a task force was reportedly formed by the Minister in the Prime Minister Department, Dr. Paul Lau, but time will tell on the efficacy or otherwise of much needed action. Now, that is one aspect of minority rights that I have touched upon, and because of time constraint, I will move on to another area on this subject of minority rights, and it has been raised at the sideline this morning, that is rights of minority based on sexual orientation and gender. Now, if I were to use my yardstick so as to protect from being criticized and have unnecessarily enlarged the area, then I do not think I would go wrong, because it is indeed an issue of an oppressed group in Malaysia. Now, it is disappointing to note that just day before yesterday, the Court of Appeal upheld the decision of the High Court in a matter on leave related to a decision by the police to ban a minority group, Sexuality Merdeka, on the basis of only police reports made against it. Ladies and gentlemen, this would have a very chilling effect on freedom of speech